What's going on, everybody? We had to wait till after Halloween to get this particular guest on. She leads a national ghost walk company, so she's been busy the last 3 months. And when her customers getting back from the pumpkin patches, going straight to the walks. That's how they go. That's how they like a sharing the market with pumpkin patches. I guess it's got to be similar. But this is the Caffeinated Cryptid, your mostly Bigfoot podcast, and we do other aspects of the paranormal to see what evidence gathered there could shed some light on the Bigfoot phenomenon, because they seem to be more and more similar each day. I'm on iTunes, Spotify. Check all that stuff out. Somebody told me yesterday they subscribed to me on Castbox. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but thanks. Apparently my stream's going to Castbox, so I'm on Castbox, everybody. But go to bobbydizzle.com for always to follow me. Hey, let me get the ticker going. For always to follow me on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. And plus, all my back episodes are on there too. And you can search by category. So that's cool. Also, my coffee sponsor, Friggin' Coffee. Check them out at store.frickincoffee.com. That's good stuff. I happen to have some Friggin' Coffee right here. I think they're running like a 15% off sale right now, depending on when this airs. It could be afterwards. It's recording. So, yeah, coming to you from the future. Anyway, that's enough about me. I haven't got my intro down yet. I've been writing it and trying different ones each time. And thanks, everyone, for bearing with me. But tonight's guest, Allison Jornlin, American Ghost Walks and AmericanGhostWalks.com. They have ghost tours in 7 states, from Hawaii to California, Minnesota, Wisconsin, if I forget one, and Maine and Puerto Rico. Was it Hawaii, California, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Maine? What's the other 2?
Illinois.
I'm missing one.
And now we're out of order. So
yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
But
that's
7,
okay.
including Puerto Rico, sounds good. So it doesn't matter. If you're near one, you know about it. Now, and also recently featured on Shark Tank on the what's it called, Sharkoween episode.
That's right. Their first official Halloween episode. Hey, Bobby, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was a pretty good episode. Like, I like watching Shark Tank for the presentations people put on. It looks like a public.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As it looks like a public speaking class in junior college.
It is. You know, the little presentations that you have to do. Mm-hmm. But it was a lot of fun, and we were glad to be invited. We had never considered outside investors for American Ghost Walks. Mm-hmm. But they reached out to us because they were looking to do their first official Halloween show, and they really did it up. I mean, now Disney owns ABC, so you watched it. You could see with the set that the set is patterned after the Haunted Mansion in Disney World. Mm-hmm. So it was just a spectacular set, and it was a great experience to be invited to do that. And like I said, we're not really looking for outside investors because we want to have control of the company. That's so important when you're dealing with haunted history. Mm-hmm. This is not a haunted house, you know. And I Mark Cuban has invested heavily in a haunted house company. So, I don't think that most of them are really ready for the idea that paranormal experiences, authentic ones, might be of interest to people. So I think that was a tough sell. And I was really, really surprised that the big bad of that show is Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. And I would tell you, I did not watch the show myself because I was there for the taping. So I just haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. And it's more important that other people see it. That's why we went on, for the exposure. But, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, is supposed to be the big bad. And I would tell you, I was like most pleasantly surprised by how gentlemanly he was, and how closely he listened compared to the others. So
he's always the fun one.
Yes. Yeah. So, I don't think any of them are ready for real paranormal. But that's what we deliver. And it's not a haunted house and it's not a paranormal investigation either. Although we do in some of our locations in Illinois, for example, around the Chicago area, have some ghost hunts that we do. And, we may roll those into other areas, but our primary focus is haunted history. So giving people real history, but a completer picture that includes spirituality, spiritualism,
Hmm.
paranormal beliefs that you don't normally associate with historical figures, but were a big influence on many of the people that are still famous today, had the paranormal in their background. So that's what we try to bring out in our tours. And I think that came
Hmm.
clear in our presentation to the Sharks when we talked about Cornelius Vanderbilt and how his business decisions were
Hmm.
informed by
Oh yeah.
mediums. So, I think that's surprising to most people that hear it, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah, there's a
And
Spotify show called Mediums that features that as a whole episode.
right, that's a great show.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that we do on our tours
Hmm.
is surprise people about the history of different areas around the country. And every city has their own unique stories. Oh, the one we missed is Louisiana.
Yeah, that's right.
we
How could I
we
forget that?
can't
That's
That's
not
New
Midwest at
Orleans.
all.
No, no, it's not. So that's the one we missed. So we're in 7 states and Puerto Rico. And like I said, my job as a tour developer is to bring out these unique stories from every community where we have a tour. And the biggest compliment that we get and I got when I started the tours here in my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is that people would take the tours and then they would tell me, "Oh my God, I've lived here all my life and I never knew any of that stuff." Or they'd say, "Wow, that was a 90-minute tour, but you have forever changed how I look at my city." That's
Hmm.
incredible. And when I started the tours here in 2008, I was really patterning myself after Richard Crow, who was one of the first in the country to start haunted history tours and to realize that there's a market for haunted history. And I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that there's probably a lot of money into offering people authentic
Hmm.
experiences that have to do with the paranormal.
Oh yeah,
And
I love the ghost.
that
I love ghost tours.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be cheesy. Nobody needs to jump
Mm-mm.
out at you. These tours are for thinkers and for people who appreciate uh, thinking about history and those who have gone before
Hmm.
and thinking about the shoulders of the giants that we're standing on. To remember the dead is an important part of our tours, to remember and respect the dead. So I think that these tours really added another dimension to the tourism in certain cities. And that's what Richard Crow did back in 1973. As I said, he was one of the first to recognize that there was a demand for haunted history
Hmm.
tourism. And he was offering those tours from 1973 on. And so I lived in Milwaukee, or actually a suburb of Milwaukee, kind of a rural area called Big Bend, Wisconsin.
I've
But
heard of it.
my my mom and my brother's in the company with me too. It's a family owned company. So my mom really inspired both of us because although we lived in Wisconsin, she loved listening to the Chicago radio stations, especially WGN. And
Hmm.
every Halloween, on WGN, it would have Richard Crowe on, Chicago's Ghost Hunter, and he'd spin tales of haunted Chicagoland. And I think that's what really inspired my brother and I to go into this line of work from that very early age, because my mom was listening to Richard Crowe, and then she'd be like, oh, you know who would like to listen to these stories? The kids. And then so every Halloween she'd gather us around the radio to listen to Richard Crowe. And I know that sounds like we're from the 30s or the 40s, but I assure you that happened in the 80s, where
I believe you.
we were loving listening to the radio. And that really sparked our imagination. When I became a teacher in 2006, I was like, all right, that's it. I have my summers off. So I have this chunk of time where I can research the history and the hauntings of my city and put together an entertaining and educational tour. And that's what I did over those 2 summers. And then 2008 is when I launched. And then 2010, my brother, he lives in Madison. And I was like, dude, bro, you gotta do a haunted history tour in Madison, because that's our state capital. And so I got him started in that. And then he really went to town. I mean, my brother Mike is a big reason why we have this company, because I was focused on education as a 4th grade teacher, and that's a whole lifestyle when you're a teacher. That is your life.
I live with one.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, all about
it. And
It's
so I was really focused on that, but he started developing tours in Minnesota, because that's where he lived for a few years, because his wife was there going to law school. So he started with Madison, and then he added tours in the Twin Cities, St. Paul and Minneapolis. And then we just started going from there and developing more and more tours. And now we've both quit our jobs, and we're full-time professional weirdos.
That's the dream. That's it.
It is.
I'm on the path.
It is a dream. Yeah.
What was your first town that you opened tour in, Big Bend, or like just straight up Milwaukee?
Oh, Milwaukee. Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up in Big Bend, but then I got married in 1990 and lived in Milwaukee. And that's where I went to school. UW Milwaukee is my alma mater. And
not the Badgers.
And what was that?
I said not the Badgers.
No, that's where my brother went to school. UW Madison. So
it's in Madison.
That's where the Badgers are located. So that's the story of our company, and we just we acquire other businesses because we have a lot of friends in the industry. And the way we expand is either usually we're developing areas that don't have a tour that we think, oh, this would be a great place for a haunted history tour, like in Puerto Rico, for example.
Yeah.
And the other way we expand is we have friends in the business, and a lot of our friends are getting older and they want to sell their businesses. They want to retire, but they want their stories to live on. So they sell their company to us. And so that's how we expanded into Maine, for example.
Yeah, that's a big jump from
Minnesota. Yeah, well, you can't really plan on who wants to retire. It's just kind of whatever happens. And we had an opportunity to acquire 12 tours throughout the state of Maine. And so
Maine's a pretty active place when it comes to that.
Oh, yes.
And Maine is. Have you ever met Adam Began from Maine? Adam Began?
No, I haven't, but I'll have to look him up.
He is like a self-proclaimed Stephen King historian, and leads tours on Stephen King stuff.
Oh, really? Okay, yes.
Mhm.
I know there's the SK tours in Bangor. We're not in
Yeah.
Bangor. Currently we're in Bar Harbor
Hmm.
and Booth Bay and Camden. And then this year we also added on Wiscasset and Kennebunkport. And so we have tours coming online um, as we're able to add our own American Ghost Walks flair to the pre-existing tour content that we acquired.
What is it you think you do different than the ones that were already there? Or what is your flair?
Well,
I should
well, okay. What's my
like on
flair?
Office Space, 35 pieces of flair.
My flair. That's right. Yeah. So
You
what
put
I would
flair on.
say is I really take a deep dive into the history, and I want to make sure that the history and the paranormal aspects are entwined. So I never want to just tell generic history and then have
Hmm.
it separated from the ghost stories. I think that without history, there are no ghost stories, so it's naturally entwined.
Hmm.
So that's what when I take on development, that's what I'm looking to do is look for the historical aspects that maybe explain the paranormal
Hmm.
activity going on in the city. So I'm looking for those conjunctions. Where do they intersect? And so a lot of times, you find that in there, but sometimes you don't, or you just have to put a finer point on it. Or sometimes there's people in the community, like well-known luminaries in the communities that it's fun to do a deep dive into these names that maybe all the locals know, or maybe they still, some of these personages still have some fame, but to look into their history and see if there's any paranormal aspects that can be brought out. So, for example, in Kennebunkport in Maine, uh, one of the writers that summered there, his name was Booth Tarkington. And so you probably don't know his name now, but in the
Hmm.
40s, he was really really famous writer who won the Pulitzer Prize twice, which is almost unheard of. It's very rare for a writer to win it twice, but Booth Tarkington did. And he, one of his most well-known writings was a book called the Magnificent Ambersons, and Orson Welles actually directed that as a movie. Now, you might not know any of that, but you probably know the Royal Tenenbaums,
Hmm.
right?
I've
That
heard
that
Booth
Wes Ander
Tarkington too.
Yeah, that Wes
Yeah.
Anderson movie that came out. The Royal Tenenbaums was based on the Magnificent Ambersons. So you might not think you know Booth Tarkington, but you do. So, but aside from that, he grew up in spiritualism. And so there were a lot of stories of his paranormal experiences that I was able to bring to the tour that weren't there before. So that's an example of a deep dive, which that name Booth Tarkington still resonates in the community, but people don't realize how involved in the paranormal he was. And I was able to find a poltergeist outbreak from 1921, and he was one of the writers in the area that actually came to investigate. He wasn't the only one. So there's other writers, famous writers that summered there that also investigated. So I'm able to bring them into it as well. But people just don't think of uh, literati like Booth Tarkington rushing to the scene of a poltergeist case. So that's one of the fun contributions that I was able to make.
Yeah, and I know for that in my experience, the paranormal that have like the newspaper clippings that go along with them, so much better.
Yes,
The
yes.
story's
So,
better.
and that's what another aspect that I bring to it, where I'm looking to give our audience, our tour goers, a little bit of a glimpse into the sources, because I can't show them all the sources. They're too many. They're too
Mhm.
boring to look at. But and I kind of went a little nuts on the Kennebunkport binder. So I provide binders to the tour guides of the most interesting looking newspaper clippings. For example, the poltergeist outbreak, of course, had an agent, and her name was Florence Harriman. She was a 14-year-old girl, and in one article, they have a picture of her that is so freaky, and I'm like, what were they trying to do here with this
Mhm.
article? It's 50 years before The Exorcist, the book and the movie, but I mean, it looks like a still from that from The Exorcist. Just her face and the intensity of her eyes, and that's shocking to people when they see that newspaper article from 1921 and see the formidable presence that are coming out of this little girl's eyes, um,
Mhm.
in the newspaper photo.
They must knew what sold back then, even then.
I guess so. I guess so. But it's funny that we think, of that more of a modern invention. But here's somebody that really fit the bill, and could have been in a great horror movie. She's got the look.
Hmm. Yeah,
So yeah. So as you were saying, you like historical newspaper articles. Well, that's one of the things in
yeah.
this binder that I have the guides carry. Uh, they can give people a glimpse into some of the sources that we use, so they
Hmm.
know we're not making it up. And that's what I think is so important, because when you go on, usually on haunted history tours, they don't bother to show any of their sources or cite any of their sources.
No, usually just a
Uh,
good story was what they give you.
right, and
Yeah,
good
usually
stories
just
are
a.
great, but I'm also an investigator, so I appreciate when people cite their sources, and
Hmm.
because I love good stories, sure, but I want realism in my stories, and if you can give me a good story and then show me, oh, this really happened, well, that makes it even more exciting, I
I
think.
really appreciate that aspect because my favorite place in the world is Savannah, Georgia, and
Yeah.
I'm just a few hours from there, just a state away. And my favorite haunting from there, I found out was fake, like last year,
Mm.
and I was like, "What the hell? What? What do you
You were devastated, right?
mean?" Because I was telling it to everybody. I said, "You ain't gonna believe this," because I would like show them on the map where it was outside of the Forsyth Park, and or I had to look at, but yeah, like
And
here's like I walked by it and knew where it was, his house, where it actually happened, and no actual records exist. I'm shut up.
I think when that happens, it's disillusioning. You feel crestfallen,
Hmm.
and I think there's no reason for that, Bobby. It's not necessary. It's lazy.
Hmm.
It would be so easy if I just made stories up, but that's
Or
not what
just
I'm
use local
interested in.
legends. Maybe
Yeah.
say it's a legend. Maybe say it's a legend.
Well, and
Don't.
that's fine. We certainly address certain things that are talked about in the community, and we tell what we find, whatever it is. So if we find out that it's fake, or that there is no documentation supporting it, we say that. We can tell you the story, but
Hmm.
then we're going to give you the real deal. I think that's what people want most of all,
Hmm.
is the real deal, and you're not sacrificing anything. You don't need to make things up. There's enough real paranormal things going on. That's why we say that real ghost stories are more fun. That's what we mean by that. Everybody loves Hollywood and they love to see scary movies and they love all that. And, you know, maybe they like haunted houses too. But if you want the real deal, you come to AmericanGhostWalks.com and take one of our tours, read our blog articles, because we are really concerned with what is the truth. And we're going to tell you no matter what. And, you know, I have to also point out that sometimes I'm wrong about my skepticism. And then I put that in there too. Like, for example, we have a tour in Woodstock, Illinois, which is a cute little town. And if you've ever seen Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, you've seen that town because that's where it was filmed. But that town is also very haunted, or at least it has a lot of stories of being haunted. And the best known one is of the Woodstock Opera House. And I'm gonna have to eat my words because you know, all the, you know, past couple of seasons that we've been running that tour, that's the first place we stop and we tell you the stories. But now there is no documentation for who is thought to haunt it. It's this trite story that you hear again and again. And you might not know this, but I know it being a tour developer because I've seen it before. So in the Woodstock Opera House, the legend is that there was this actress, and she either was romantically jilted or she didn't get the part she wanted, but she jumped off the building and killed herself. And that's who's thought to haunt. Now, the reason I had my tour guide, she wasn't very happy about it, telling people that we didn't think this place was really haunted, was because there is no documentation for that historical precedent. That doesn't mean it's not haunted, but there is no documentation for that. So we have to tell people that this story of a woman, disgruntled woman jumping, there's a very similar story in Camden, Maine. And it's the very same story, except she jumped from the inside. So the woman, Sally, she was upset for some reason and jumped from the balcony and killed herself inside the building. But again, it's like a similar trope. And again, there is no documentation for that. So this idea of this tragic woman is something that you'll see again and again. And a lot of stories tell you more about our culture than they do about the paranormal. And there's a great book by Colin Dickey called Ghostland, which talks all about that. Anyway, and there's other books as well that I can't remember the name of. But so I had to eat my words, though, because although there does seem to be some evidence that this story of this ghost woman haunting the opera house in Woodstock came about when the Woodstock Players were putting on, wait for it, Blithe Spirit. And the ghost in Blithe Spirit is named Elvira. So that's what they call the ghost of the Woodstock Opera House. And so the idea of her was popularized during that production at the Opera House. And so that's why we didn't think it was really true. But then there's a parapsychologist who I know very well who grew up in Woodstock, and she recently moved back to the area. And I have known her from her research and her educational outreach. And I was so excited that she moved to Woodstock because that's only 1 hour away from where I live. So when I went out with her the last time, over dinner, we're talking about Woodstock Opera House, and she shared that in 1959, when she was in high school, she had a haunting experience at the Woodstock Opera
Oh,
House.
really?
So now I have to. I can't be so sure about it, can I?
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to add that to the script for next season. But
Well,
that
is
just gives you
that
an
old of a
idea about
place?
so that just gives you an idea about how we treat our tours. So we're very concerned about keeping them up to date as much as we can and giving you the real story. And if we screwed up, we'll fix it later. We'll keep you apprised of the most updated information about
Do you
each
ever bring
case.
in? Do you ever bring in mediums to suss out an area at first and then go from there?
No, not officially. We usually are led by history
Mm-hmm.
and paranormal activity reports. But
Mm-hmm.
it is fun to take a medium on the tour, and sometimes surprising things come out, like they see an image of a person, and so we have to do that scientifically in the future. I think that would be fun to take a medium on the tour and not, or just take them around the route and not tell them anything and see what they
Mm-hmm.
get at each location and see if it matches up with the history that we've uncovered. That would be fun to do. We have not done that scientifically yet, but that's been fun in the past to I on one of my original haunted history tours in Milwaukee, a medium did come along and say that on one of the locations she described the person to me that she saw, and it sounded very much like the person that we think haunts that location. But again, we didn't have scientific control, so it's hard to say, is she just telling me what I wanted to hear, or did she see that before I said anything? So I mean, we'd have to definitely make sure the medium is blinded to the facts of the different areas, um, and just see what they
Yeah,
get and see
you
if
got to
it
be real
matches up. That
careful.
would, yes.
You got to be real careful with cold readings with mediums too,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have a lot on my show anymore. Those are UFO abductees because it's just way too weird and sometimes way too fake.
Yeah, I
Like, I'm
mean,
not falling for that. This ain't my first day.
yeah, it's hard because there are so many fakers in the field. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're
They
like
don't have to
me,
prove it.
yeah, if you're like me and you're only interested in what's authentic, it makes it really hard. Like you were saying, uh, when you found out that that story from Savannah, Georgia was
Mm-hmm.
fake, um, I mean, it's a crushing feeling.
I bought a
I
damn
don't,
book.
yeah. I
I
mean,
bought a book.
you don't think that you don't understand why people do that. I mean, obviously there's money in it, but I would tell you that there's money in authenticity as well. So just walk that line
I would
instead.
say
I mean,
it would feel better if it's authentic. If it's almost like worth the money, worth the extra step to
right.
make it authentic.
And I have the opportunity to do that. That's what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
full-time weirdo. I have the opportunity to sit and
Full
look
time.
through databases. Like that's like my life is like pinging historical databases, looking at old newspaper articles, interviewing people. I mean, that's what I do for a living. It's tracking down sources. So, and that's what's exciting to me because I'm always looking for that holy grail of
Mm-hmm.
hey, what if I was able to dig something up that nobody right now knows about, and it's like really obscure historical information, which isn't hard in the US. We don't really know our history.
Mm-hmm.
uh
You ever had any
and
big eureka microfiche moments, like late night looking at microfiche, and all of a sudden,
well,
like you see on Goosebumps,
kind
stuff like
of.
that all the
I
time.
mean, but here's the hard thing. here's the hard thing that I don't want to cross the line with some of these things. So there's what's crushing is, yes, I have had those, but when you're dealing with hauntings, you're dealing with death and
Yeah.
very often tragedy.
I would say
You
most of
know,
the time.
right.
For it to be a
And
haunting, it's going to have to be something bad.
right. And so sometimes I'm the only one that knows the bad thing, and I don't want to be exploitive. So, yes, there are certain hauntings where I think I know what the source is, but after reading the story of this person's life and what they went through, and maybe it's more recent than I'd like, I just choose not to talk about it, even though people want you to talk about it. That's what they're digging for.
Hmm.
I always feel bad when I let something out like that. And that's what I think when paranormal things happen, sometimes they're very tragic, or they're
Hmm.
horrible. I mean, like, if you watched a horror movie and somebody got killed or whatever, like, you know, that's a horrible thing. And sometimes in real life, um, you come across horrible things that have happened. And sometimes I'm able to talk about them because I feel like, well, that was over 100 years ago, and that's okay to talk about. But other times, I don't, because I'm like, wow, that would add a lot to this case, but I just don't feel good about it. And again,
Hmm.
that's where respecting the dead comes from, and that's so difficult. You know, um, people always want to know if ghosts or paranormal creatures can really hurt you. Well, you'd never know, because when somebody dies, that's it. It's just not appropriate to dig into these people's lives, because
Hmm.
they had loved ones. And so how are you going to investigate that? It's not like you can prosecute a demon or a trickster. You can't prosecute um, whatever these beings might be. So there's no way for you to investigate it and also be respectful. So that's something really tough that I don't know how to get around. Uh,
It's a
be,
fine line for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So I can tell you about something that happened in Milwaukee, which really startled me. It was a
Hmm.
story that I came upon in the Milwaukee Journal and Milwaukee Sentinel from May of 1920. And it involved a little boy named Raymond Natz. And he just began acting peculiar one day, as if he was just like frightened, like almost to death, by something he could see that no one else could see. And he tried to describe it to his parents as this white shadow that was following him everywhere. And he I mean, of course, how do you explain that to your parents? And I mean, he really couldn't. I mean, they made him go to bed. They there was nothing they could do. I mean, they can't see it. And then the father was awakened in the night by little Raymond crying out in his sleep, and went to Raymond, and Raymond seemed like he was in a trance, and like he was talking to something that was in the room, accusing this something of trying to fool him. But then when his father woke him up, his Raymond said to his father that, "Oh, Dad, it was so beautiful. I was in the water with the fish." And yeah, that wasn't good. So then the father went to work and left Raymond in the care of a neighbor lady, and Raymond was able to slip away with his cap and fishing pole. and walked 2 miles to Lake Michigan, and he was never seen alive again. When they finally dredged the lake, they found his body, and they were able to tell by the time his watch, the watch that he's wearing, had stopped, that he must have walked directly there from home. It was only like 8:45 in the morning, which I believe the watch read, and walked directly from home the 2 miles, and then just dropped his cap and his fishing pole and just kept walking into Lake Michigan until he was no more. And that was a 9-year-old boy.
That sounds like some kind of possession.
Yeah. It's a scary story, and it's not a newspaper hoax. It's a real story involving real people.
Has that ever been on a TV show?
No.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Someone did a podcast on it recently. Because I've been talking about it a lot over the past few years at my presentation. So somebody must have heard me, and they did a podcast on it, but no, it's never been on television. But I mean, it's perfect for television, I think. And it's an absolutely real story, and it's one of those that really sickened me when I saw it.
What year was it?
1920.
Wow. So they didn't have like cameras or phones or nothing. They just had to do with people seeing a little kid walking.
Right. And being able to tell from the watch, that read stopped at 8:45 in the morning or about thereabouts.
The first thing I thought when you said his watch, I'm like, well, mine wouldn't stop. They wouldn't even know when. I guess 1920, it was all gears.
Yeah. So the idea that he had to walk that long to get to the lake, and then all he wanted to do was just drown himself. I mean, you got to have a lot of commitment to want to do that. You know what I mean? And you just don't think of a 9-year-old being so driven to kill themselves that they're going to walk all that way. And then, just, and if you've ever been kayaking or anything like that, I just remember learning to kayak, and I was at this these workshops with my family, and the first thing they want you to do is capsize, and you're hanging underwater from the kayak, and you have to like get yourself out of a little skirt, and and then tap on the side of the canoe, and then try to get out of the water, and you think you're gonna be fine, but once you're like upside down in the water, your survival instinct kicks in, and you're like, this is not fine.
Especially with a skirt up.
I'm not gonna tap on I'm not gonna do any of that. I'm getting the hell out of the water. So I just think of a 9-year-old, just walking straight to his death into the water. I mean, it's a terrible thing
down there.
Yeah, how do you hold yourself down underwater until you're dead? I mean,
usually you walk into the river or something like that, you just kind of float up. Whenever you get to a certain height, your legs go up. You can't control it.
Yeah,
I've definitely capsized a few kayaks in my time.
So you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. That will to live is strong. So
you gotta get the hell out of there.
Yeah, you might be sad and want to drown yourself, but once that water starts getting down your gullet, I think you change your mind. So that's what really makes me wonder about that 9-year-old boy.
Especially since he started acting weird before that.
Yeah. That he was seeing something following him, and he was very frightened, following this thing that only he could see around the room. and didn't want to go to bed, was just shivering in the corner. I mean, that's like a Stephen King story right there.
Or a Twilight Zone, at least.
Absolutely.
That's
It
got demonic
really
written
happened.
all over it.
Yeah, it really happened. So, yeah, these are the kind of stories I find. And, sometimes I'm able to talk about them because, like I said, 1920, that's far enough away where, you really, anybody that knew the family is already gone.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just, it's an interesting field to be part of, but it's not easy to develop tours because you want to make sure you're culturally sensitive. You want to make sure you're respecting the dead. You want to make sure you're authentic. There's so many things that go into it.
Have you, as far as your tours go, have there ever been any incidents with haunting, customers getting touched or hearing things? I'm sure there has
Well,
been.
yeah,
Pictures.
yeah, certainly people think that they capture certain things on camera.
Yeah.
I would say that it's not an investigation. So even on investigations, ghosts don't perform on
Yeah.
command. So, and you have to really question the tour goers' responses to things because they're primed to look for evidence of a haunting.
Anything will
So,
come up with it. Like, touch me. What was that?
right, absolutely. So I'm very skeptical of that. I would say I'm a functional skeptic where, yeah, I am skeptical, but I am not dogmatic in that I know that certain paranormal things do exist. I'm not sure what they are, but I've had enough of my own experiences that I can say the paranormal does exist. You don't have to make things up. It's out there. You just have to look hard enough and turn over every rock and you're going to find it if you're dedicated.
Yeah, at least something's going to happen. Well, I've been on
Right.
a Bigfoot camp out this weekend, and they were sending, going through all their footage, and they found something on one of them. I was like, that's kind of weird, man. It's either somebody standing in the woods or you got something, and you don't want to be like jumping on the first thing that happens, like it's 100%. But at the same time, you're like, well, what if it was?
Right. Yeah. So you're walking a thin line, but I think it's definitely worth it. There are every time I have an experience, it surprises me. For example, I had an experience at a place that I had thought to myself, if any place is haunted, it's not this place. It was the old Baraboo Inn in Baraboo, Wisconsin. And the reason that I felt that it wasn't haunted is because this was a business where the owner knew that how good hauntings are for business. So he really leaned into it. And there are these places. We have another place in Milwaukee where, oh boy, it's haunted. There's so many ghosts. It's like, how do you have enough room for the living people? Because there's so many ghosts coming out of every orifice, and there's demons in the basement. Well, that's what the old
Always
Baraboo
demons.
Inn was like. Yeah, there's got to be demons there too. And it's not that I don't think that they exist. I just don't think they're that common, or
They
that
can't be.
one, or that, yeah. Hopefully they're not, or that any place is so haunted like that, like a portal to the other side. So I had a hard time thinking that this place was really haunted, but the owner was really nice. And very kind to me. He's passed now, but he was a really kind man. And, he went out of his way to be kind to me. And he invited me one time to to speak, do a 2-hour presentation about Wisconsin hauntings, which I did, and it was really fun. And I had brought my brother along because he has a band that um, has a predilection for paranormal hits. So I thought, well, he can play.
Mhm.
We can record a podcast. We can do a whole night of events. And so that's what we had planned. The first thing was my um, my my presentation. When I got done, everybody was still in the presentation area, which was on the far side of this restaurant bar. And then in the dining room where the really long main bar is, to the side, the other extreme side, we had our podcast table set up, so we could sit there like a panel. Um,
Mhm.
and so I was just stowing my gear under a table.
That sounds really fun, by the way.
Yeah, and so it was a fun event. So I was just stowing my laptop under the table, and I stood up, and then I see something strange across the room. And boy, I wanted, I when you see something, I don't know about you, but I want it to be a full body apparition. I don't want
Yeah,
it to be this thing because it was a stupid orb.
the Holy
So
Grail.
I see it with my eyes. Okay, so but it's hard to explain to people because they think you're talking about what's on video or what's on a still shot. But no, I saw this thing which seemed about as big as a ping pong ball. Was not a dramatic like blue ball of light or anything like that, like you see in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Was like a dull, like yellowish white color, and was just hanging there in the air. I saw it hanging there, and I had a moment to say, "Hey, what is that thing?" And then it sped up, and it zoomed right past my head. Now I did not feel it or hear it, but I had an authentic reaction. Anytime
Hmm.
anything comes flying at your head, you flinch. And that's what I did. I had that real natural reaction of just flinching and then looking around, and it was nowhere to be found. And I had a very difficult time talking to anyone about that. I didn't talk to anyone about it that night. I didn't talk to anyone until that was a Saturday, until that Monday after I got done teaching school. I called my brother and I said, "Oh, by the way, I saw something." And that was interesting to me how it took so long to process when something actually did
Hmm.
happen. Uh, and then about a year later, uh, someone from the Old Baraboo Inn, the sister of the owner, was on a panel at our Milwaukee paranormal conference that we have annually. And she was talking about events at the Old Baraboo Inn and said that her brother's girlfriend would often complain when she came into that area of the bar of being dive bombed by orbs. So that was awesome because I hadn't told her about what happened to me, and I did not know that was one of the claims, but that was confirmation. So,
Hmm.
but it's lame. It's not
No, I
really
mean,
cool. It's not really
orbs are a
cool.
thing.
I know, but yeah, when you got to wait so long between paranormal experiences, so when it happens, you really want it to be a good one. You don't want to have any reservations, or you don't want it to be a kick in the butt. Oh yeah, Allison, you've been telling people that orbs are dust, and so now we're gonna show you one. And so again, it's like a kick in the pants for me, but I learn. I mean, that's a good thing. But it's just so funny how we have so many expectations of our paranormal experiences, and they come so few and far between. But they surprise me and they teach me something every time.
Yeah, at least it's not driving you to try to hoax things. Like
No,
some people have one or two and they just get addicted, and so they start trying to make anything paranormal.
right.
That's how
Yeah.
you get
And
your
I
blob swatches.
think you got to be patient, and you got to just take what comes. And as investigators, you have to report whatever it is, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Hmm.
You have to report whatever you see, even if you don't like it, even though you think it's dumb, it was a dumb orb. you still have to tell people this is what I saw. And if you're wrong about something, you have to say, "Well, I thought the Woodstock Opera House wasn't haunted. Well, now I got to rethink it." So
Hmm.
we have to be open to change. As you know, if you're an investigator, investigate and report whatever you see. And I think people will get addicted to authenticity. And I think there are already people out there that want it. And I think we have to, we have to lead the charge, and hope that you will too. And then everybody who
Hmm.
really cares about the paranormal will expose fakes,
Hmm.
because there is real stuff out there. Don't worry that if you find something that's fake, that means everything's fake. It does not.
Yeah,
It's just
it's.
getting you closer to the truth.
I've even started looking for guests that aren't like trying to sensationalize things because I've seen too much of it, and I think people who are into like watching those TV shows, they don't care if something seems weird just go on a vacation somewhere and take a ghost tour. They don't care, but anybody that does it more than once, there are just
Right.
a couple of times they start like, well, this is stupid. This is just like some sensationalized story. Like me, I can't handle like somebody who's obviously just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks in a paranormal. I'm like, I
Right.
just can't. I can't listen to them. I'll do the show, but I will never air it. And yeah, so
Well,
I just don't have the patience for it.
Well, I'm really glad that you have me on today, and that you are somebody who takes this seriously and is looking for the truth.
Hey, like I said, I was on that Bigfoot research outing this weekend with the real team, and I had no idea how serious they took it. I was like, I gotta buckle down. I'm just over here just messing around at my house, drinking coffee and talking about stuff. I gotta wrap it. I gotta tighten it up.
Yeah. Well, as you learn, you get better and better, and you shore
Hmm.
things up.
And I was gonna ask you. I had one question about. Have you ever went to a city just no clue what was going on, like a new city, and started a tour and did your own from the grassroots investigation and developed a tour from nothing?
Oh yeah. I mean, we do that all the time. I mean,
I was
that's
thinking you did, but the acquisition as well. I'm like, maybe take it
yeah,
over.
yeah. So that's what I did in Milwaukee, and
Mhm. Well, yeah, I knew other than
yeah,
Milwaukee, I should say. I know you said your
yeah,
first thing.
and yeah, we had a very successful tour in Lahaina in Hawaii, and we were just lucky when they had the fire this year,
Hmm.
that none of our guests or our guides were hurt. But that was a wonderful town, and I hope they're able to rebuild. And I'm just so sorry for the people that were lost. It was an incredible town with so many historical buildings. So that was a place that didn't have a haunted history tour. And when we were looking at Maui for developing a haunted history tour, because Oahu has a bunch of them. So
Hmm.
what about the other Hawaiian islands? They don't.
Yeah, there's
So
100 of them.
yeah, so in Oahu, there's a lot, but the other Hawaiian islands have incredible stories as well. So when I was given the chance to develop in Maui, there was no place on Maui like Lahaina, and now there really is no place like Lahaina, sadly. But there were so many great stories there. So yeah, that's an example of one that I developed from the ground up. And
Cool.
again, Woodstock was an example. They didn't have a haunted history tour either. So I think there's a lot more examples of places that didn't have one, um, than our acquisitions. But we've been lucky with our acquisitions lately, that we're able to keep the longest running tour in Chicago going. Um, I had a I have a friend who ran tours in Bayfield, Wisconsin, which is up by the Apostle Islands. We're keeping that one going,
Hmm.
and we also have those places in Maine. But again, like Puerto Rico didn't have any walking tours or haunted tours. And that was the same with Lahaina. They didn't even have a walking tour that you could take. So those were, places that have so many stories, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for places that people visit where we can add to the experience by bringing in the haunted history.
I bet that's fun, going to a new place and digging up all that stuff, putting it all together.
Absolutely.
And that they did that. They started the one here in Huntsville about, I guess 2009, 2008, right when I moved over here. And now it's like a daggum subculture. They even have bus rides and trolley rides and horses.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you going to see? I said, it's not that big of a place, but yeah, they have different districts. Sure enough, they have enough people to get on trolley rides and bus rides, and they have the little horse wagons.
Yeah. So, and if you dig, you're gonna find some incredible stories that need to be told wherever you are.
They're out there. Even my little hometown of Scottsboro, Alabama, has a ghost tour. I'm like, well, damn, what is that?
Yeah. It's incredible. And these mom and pop ghost tours, that's what inspired me and what inspired my brother. So we're just trying to do justice to the places where we develop new tours and carry on tours when we have those mom and pop shops that want to retire. But yeah, thanks for having me on. And if people want more information, our website, AmericanGhostWalks.com, is a great place to look. And it's AmericanGhostWalks.com.
Walks.
Plural. Yeah, because we only have one ghost walk. I wouldn't have that much to talk about. So AmericanGhostWalks.com. And if anyone wants to email me, they're welcome to live for your stories at Allison. So Allison at AmericanGhostWalks.com. Yes, and Allison is spelled just like all is on. Allison at AmericanGhostWalks.com. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's been a good time. I'm sitting here wondering about all the places I've been that may have ghosts.
Yeah.
Think about some places in Montana. I bet they got some Indians and some battles out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun. We'll go ahead and wrap it up if you want to. You went through the gambit there. I had all my questions answered before I came to them.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on, Bobby.
Oh yeah, it's fun. And everybody just check out AmericanGhostWalks.com. And it's a really cool website and the logo. I don't have to look far for a thumbnail for this.
Yeah, and we have a newsletter that we send out every week. So if your listeners love ghost stories, well, that's a way to get a new ghost story from one of our destinations. We have about 30 different tours running. So we'll send you a newsletter with a new ghost story from one of our locations every week.
Cool. There's several little segments of this show I can clip out and advertise a little bit more specific too. So that's cool. I love a good clippy show.
Well, thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Let's do the countdown and sign out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks, Allison, for coming on, and check out AmericanGhostWalks.com.
I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it. I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.